Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Book with Julie. And today we're in conversation with First Chapter Fun. Hannah Mary McKinnon and Hank Philippi Ryan. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me.
Thank you.
This morning.
Great. We're delighted to be here.
So happy to be with you. Hannah is in Canada and Hank is in Boston. So it is afternoon for you, even though it's still 10 a.m. over here on the West Coast.
Well, we have no idea what time it is anyway, or what day it is. It just doesn't matter. It's just all time.
So we're still March 2020, aren't we?
Right, exactly.
It's already March. It's been an entire year since we've been sitting in the pandemic from our homes doing this kind of thing. And today we're trying out StreamYard, which I'm so excited about. Hannah has been teaching me all about this platform for the past few weeks, and hopefully we have it down today. And Carla is joining us from Alabama. Carla, thanks so much for being here with us.
Carla is one of the real reasons that I think Julie Beyond the Book and First Chapter Fun work, is that we are meeting people, don't you think, from all over the country. I mean, Carla from Alabama, we wouldn't know each other, and now we see each other all the time. It's kind of great, don't you think?
It's amazing. It's so great. How else would the three of us have connected, right? And First Chapter Fun, I want to hear about how this came to be. You both started out as authors, writing your books. Well, Hank, you also have this career as an investigative reporter in Boston. You've been doing that for many, many years. And then you started writing books because you just had so much free time.
Exactly.
And then on top of all that, you two ladies collaborated for First Chapter Fun.
Well, First Chapter Fun began with Hannah. This is totally Hannah's story. So you tell it, Hannah, and I'll just interrupt.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. So about a year ago, I saw that, I was on a Facebook Messenger conversation with a number of author friends who had books coming out in the spring. So last spring of 2020 and summer. And we were collectively freaking out about book launches being cancelled and book events being cancelled, events at libraries and town halls or wherever we were going to be. And we didn't know what impact that would have on our books coming out. We had no idea. We had no idea how long this would last, lockdown and whatnot, because there was debate about lockdown and the kids going back 2 weeks after March break, which turned into September. So I semi-jokingly offered to read the first chapter of their books live on Facebook and on Instagram, thinking that, maybe half a dozen people, maybe a dozen tops would agree. And the feedback was so huge and so swift. And within, I think, 2 days, I had 40 people lined up, which turned into over 50. And my original plan was to read until May the 8th, because I had Sister Dear coming out on May the 26th, and I needed, I had other stuff to do. And I read daily. I read every day. But I think it must have been, a week or so, or 2 weeks maybe, Hank. I can't remember, where we connected. And I think you left a comment about how fun you thought First Chapter Fun was. And I said, can I read for you? And we arranged that. And then you twisted my arm a bit to go beyond May the 8th.
Well, I think Samantha Bailey, the fabulous and glorious, brilliant Samantha Bailey, was the one. Oh, look, Facebook user says, I love Hannah Mary McKinnon and Hank Philippi Ryan. Thank you. Let me just say that Hannah and I can't type comments the way this works, so we can read them, and we love you. Hi, Diane. Hi, Allie. Thank you so much for all you do. But we can see you, but we can't answer you. So just so you know. And Facebook user, we don't know who you are. Because you're commenting through Facebook. So put your name, if you will, because we'd love to give you a big virtual hug. So fabulously, Samantha Bailey suggested that I watch First Chapter Fun. I had no idea about it, and when I saw it, I was just instantly hooked. Hannah is the best reader that there could ever be on the planet. Yes, you are. And it was such a wonderful way. I mean, we were all terrified. I mean, I I don't think we should forget that. A year ago, I spent every day worrying about whether my husband and my family and I were going to die. Not to mention my book, which was about to come out, and not to mention the real world. And we didn't even know what the real world was going to be at all. So First Chapter Fun was this moment, and we've tried to keep it that way, of, it's always safe inside a book. And that's what Hannah was providing. So after Hannah read my book, thank you, Brenda. After Hannah read my book, I think she read The Murder List.
Yes.
And then it was time for Hannah's book to come out. And I had to wonder who was going to read Hannah's book out loud when it came out, because it couldn't be her. And that's when I offered to read her book. Isn't that what happened?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And you said, well, what are you going to do after May the 8th? And are you going to continue? And I thought, I can't. And it was every day, which was too much to continue anyway. And then Hank suggested, well, why don't we share the readings and read twice a week instead? And it just became this, like Hank said, this bubble twice weekly, half an hour, where we can just be. And I needed the project, going back to what you were saying, Hank, at the time when I started it off or moving into, I was watching the news and reading the news and looking at the numbers. And this is when cases were about 150,000 worldwide. So, nothing in comparison to the numbers that they are today of COVID cases. And I needed something to take my focus off, always watching the news and panicking, because I was panicking too. And refresh my browser and see the number going. I mean, how dumb is that? But I couldn't help it.
No, we all did.
Yeah, and it was scary, and we didn't know how long this was going to go on, and we still don't really. But it just became, for me as well, something that distracted me from what was going on in the real world. It gave me.
And we both, when we decided to do it together, I think Hannah's arm is still twisted behind her as I suggested that we share. But I have to tell you, Julie, and then we want to hear about how you started Beyond the Book. I have to tell you, Julie, that for about 2 weeks, Hannah and I talked every minute of every day.
Yeah.
Right, didn't we? To make this work and see if it would work and figure out our systems. And, all of you who come to First Chapter Fun, and we love you so much. And rely on you. There was a lot of setup that had to do. There's a lot of little hamster wheels going on behind the scenes before every reading, as you know. And we had to work out our systems, and we got to be really good friends. And we now talk about our books and talk about our families and talk about our lives. And it's just been this truly life-changing experience for me that wouldn't have happened without this stupid pandemic.
Yes.
Even now that I have 2 little shots in my arm, and I'm so happy about that, we still don't know what the world will be. And that's why First Chapter Fun will continue to be important. Don't you think, Hannah?
I think so, absolutely. And Wednesday is our first anniversary.
Tell about that.
That's right. 1 year anniversary. Yeah. What are some of your plans for your 1 year anniversary?
Well, so on Tuesday and Thursday, we have our regular readings, of course. Every Tuesday, every Thursday, like clockwork, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And on Wednesday, we're going to have a whole bumper day of giveaways. We've invited authors for whom we've read to come and give away some stuff, not necessarily books, could be other stuff as well. And that will be all day on Wednesday, March 17th. And then in the evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, Hank and I will do one of our First Chapter Fun live chats, both on Facebook and Instagram.
It's so hilarious. We have Samantha Bailey and Lisa Unger and Rhea Fry and Kaz Freer and this amazing array of every author that who we've read, we invited to come post a giveaway, and we don't even know what they all will be. So it will be just as much a surprise for Hannah and me, and we'll have our own giveaways, but it'll be just as much a surprise for Hannah and me to see what glorious things these fabulous authors are going to offer. So that's going to be quite a day. I mean, I can unprecedented.
Now, how will people join you? Will they just come on your Instagram and you'll be live all day?
No. It's going to be on Facebook, and the authors will post, and then people can go into the Facebook group, First Chapter Fun, and leave comments on the post, and that's how they can win. So no, we will not be live all day.
Come on, Julie. I mean, you could probably.
I just thought you were taking it to the next level, and you're just going to be live on every platform.
All day on every platform.
Just the chat at 7 p.m. will be on both platforms again, Facebook and Instagram, like we normally do.
Yes.
When we've had so Christmas, we had a special event, a special holiday event, and New Year's Eve we had a special holiday event. Where we both broadcast with the wonderful tool StreamYard, as we are today on Facebook.
Yes, StreamYard is wonderful. I'm just getting to know this platform as you two talk, and I'm posting all of these comments that we're getting. And this is just such a professional platform. I love it so much. Thank you both for introducing me to it.
Thank you for Beyond the Book. Talk a little bit about Beyond the Book, because you've been so influential for all this time on Instagram. Talk a little bit about how that came to be. Tell us about that.
Sure. So it actually came to be about 3 years ago for me. And it started because, like you, I was a journalist and I was a morning news anchor, and I didn't love news. So I came home and I thought, well, what happened was I was on Facebook and I saw that Lori Gelman, who not sure if you've read her books, but Class Mom, and then her second book, You've Been Volunteered, and then her latest book, which is still the unproofed copy, right here, Yoga Pants Nation. I love this title. So Lori Gelman was the person who started it all for me in the book world. I saw that she had written Class Mom. I wanted to be at her book reading in New York, and I missed it by a day. And so I wrote to her and said, if you're ever in Los Angeles doing a book talk at, one of the national shows, the Ellen Show or the Talk, I'd love to have you in my private home and invite a whole bunch of moms, suburban moms who would love your books, and you could sell your books. And lo and behold, her publicist called me and said, she's coming to LA. Would you like to have her in your private home? And I said, yes. And so she came, and I had about 40 women here, set up a breakfast spread. So the backstory about that is I love hosting a party, and I love hosting an out of the ordinary party. So something different, something fun, something that people can just have a different experience. And so 40 women came. They loved her. She kept everyone rolling in laughter. Everyone connected with her because, we're all moms and we all over volunteer. And we sold her book through our local bookshop here at my house. And it was a really fun event. And I also love doing interviews. So I thought, well, this is a great way to sharpen my interview skills and, to find out the backstory, not the actual book, but how the book came to be. And so after that, the publicist called me and said, we have more authors coming and we'd like for you to interview them ahead of them going on these national shows. And so I started doing that for the past few years. It was lots of fun. The last author I interviewed just before the pandemic was Andrew Morton, the royal biographer, who wrote Princess Diana's True Story. And a few years ago, when Harry and Meghan got married, he wrote a biography about Meghan. And the Meghan story had or not the Meghan story, but Harry and Meghan had left the royal family and England around January-ish, and that story broke. And so Andrew Morton was already scheduled to come to my house in February. So he came to a packed house, over 120 people. And when I had first approached him to come over, he said, I don't understand. Are you inviting 4 friends and we're going to have coffee and you want me to talk to them about the books I write? And I said, I think we'll get more than 4 people. So he was stunned to see over 120 people. I mean, I also got lucky, right? My timing was good that they decided to leave the royal family. And so it was lots of fun. And then the pandemic hit. And I was already trying to figure out, how am I going to grow and meet more authors? And so for me, the pandemic was this slight sliver of, a twinkle of a star and an opening. And then I had the opportunity to meet so many more authors because I took it to Instagram, like you do with First Chapter Fun on social media. I started to connect with authors just everywhere, different countries, the East Coast. And it's been such an amazing experience. And when I started to do it, I have an intern who helps me. And I said, we're going to start on Wednesday and we're going to do it every day. And she said, every day? But you don't even have 3 authors for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I said, we'll figure it out. And so we had an author every day until it became a little too much, like it did for you, Hannah. And okay, every day's a lot. So now we do 4 in a day, 4 or 5 in a day. And it was on Wednesdays and it's now moved to Thursdays, but it's so much fun. I just love connecting with people like you and learning your backstories. And I'm always just so inspired by how authors can sit for so many hours every single day, being so creative and writing and writing and writing. And I just dream of one day doing that. But I
think Hannah, we should tell Julie that what she just described as the life of an author is not really exactly just sitting by ourselves and writing. Would that were true. That is not exact. It's more like clawing your way through every word, and when you have to do the laundry and you have to make dinner and you have to take care of the family and you have to, do every other thing. And then at some point your brain is saying, you need to write your book.
Yes.
You need to write your book.
Yes.
So it has been a juggle though. I think it's that you've juggled your life and we're juggling our lives. And it all meshes together so gorgeously. It does.
Well, I do believe that, Hank, you must have a secret app that you're just not telling us about, where it reads your mind and it just writes it for you and you think it, and then the app just starts writing. And that's how you're able to juggle so many things, right?
I think you have a time machine or a twin.
Exactly. All that is. Oh yes. I have clouded your minds. All that is true. We don't have any pets. I am sorry to say, except for the wild ducks that come to our backyard every year, and they're about to arrive. I think I'm kind of worried about that. We can talk about that at some point another time, but we'll see if the wild ducks come back. And I don't have any house plants that actually live. They just die. So, but I love my work, and I've been a television reporter for 43 years now, and I'm still on the air in Boston. I love my writing. I love it. And I do think that one of the things about learning to be an author, and Hannah, tell me what you think, because you have kids and a husband and a whole life, is that juggle of how to not only write, but be better every time.
Yes.
I think the biggest struggle for me is that I always put myself last. And that's my problem. And that's something I've done for years and years, where I worked before. I remember having a conversation with one of my bosses saying, however much I throw at you, you get it done. And he was right. I did, until I got to breaking point one point where it was just too much. But it was almost like he was chucking more and more stuff over to see whether I could handle it. And it was a game, and I was going, yes, of course I can handle it. Of course I can handle it. And then all of a sudden, I reached my limit. So that, and I put myself last, I mean stuff like working out, I've got tons of other stuff to do. Oh, I won't do anything today. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow rolls around. Oh, I'll do it next day. And sometimes I prefer spending time with my characters than I do working out. This is the truth.
And also, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're putting yourself last, then you wouldn't find time to write your book, right? So how do you not put yourself last in that role and find time to write?
Well, I'd say when I say I put myself last, what I mean is not work. Work.
Writing your books.
I've discovered, I think I said to my husband Rob the other day, I said, I've had an epiphany. He said, oh yes, dear, what's that? And I said, I'm not a workaholic. I just love work. I love what I do. Like you, Hank. I love my work. I love writing. Not always. I mean, sometimes I'm tearing my hair out and clawing my way through the pages and wishing I could set fire to the whole manuscript. But for the most part, I love what I do. So I do carve out time for writing. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to, because the words aren't going to write themselves. You have to get your butt in the chair, your fingers on the keyboard, and get on with it, because the manuscript's not going to appear out of thin air.
And it's funny, somebody said once, and I think it was actually, interestingly, have you read the Ellie Griffiths book, The Stranger Diaries, which is so wonderful? I highly recommend that book. I love Ellie Griffiths, but a character in that book is an English teacher, and she tells her students, the muse only comes when you're working. And I really think about that. You know, you can think about your book all you want, and you can plan it and, you know, mull it over. But until you're sitting in your chair and typing words, even if they're bad words, the real, you know, the gorgeous ideas are not going to come. And that's another, you know, people have said to me, do you have any hobbies? And I'm like,
not really.
A hobby, like something I would do in my spare time. You know?
Does reading count, or is that not really a hobby?
Somebody's saying just reread The Stranger Diaries. Great. I think that's interesting, because I think, and I'd love to know what you two think about this. I've been an author now for, I think, 15 years, like kind of crazy to think about. But I think I've always loved reading, but I think I read a little bit differently now. I'm reading more critically, you know, sometimes I'm thinking, when I read a book, I think, oh, this is so good, I'm not this good. And it's intimidating. Or sometimes I think, wow, this is bad. You know, how did that get published? Or sometimes I think, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. So there's this sort of weird filter that I read with now. But it is true that when I find a book that is so good and I forget to filter it, that's when you know you really have a winner.
That you've been captivated. Mm-hmm. And you're really enthralled in the book because you forget about all those details, right?
Yeah. Have you had that happen, Hannah, Julie?
I have, yeah. When you, especially when it's a book by someone you know, and then you're reading it and you forget that it's by somebody you know.
Yeah.
I love that, because you and it's not like I'm reading a book thinking, oh, who is this by? And reminding myself constantly who wrote it. No, it's the story. But it's brilliant when you get to the end or somewhere in the book and you think, oh, hang on, you know, XYZ wrote this, and it makes you even more excited, because you know it's a killer book, and it's your friend, and it's just brilliant.
Yes, I'm always intrigued to read the books after I meet the author, and then to see, you know, the similarities that the book brings out in the actual author, and to kind of get a glimpse into, gee, do they really think like this?
That's how we write crime. That's a bit worrying.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about that. I mean, it is interesting because we all use our own personal emotional experiences in the books. That's why the books are different from each other. But it's also, you know, the magic and the imagination of how our individual imaginations would create a story and bring that to life. I mean, Hannah, you know, you write a lot of male protagonists.
I do, yeah.
And from that point of view, and so certainly that's a different part of your brain.
Yeah. Yep. Next year's book is entirely from a man's perspective again, which I have done once before.
Hannah, does it ever make you wonder, like, gosh, was this an experience I had in a past life?
No. No, but now I will.
I'm always curious about things like that. Like, where do these stories come from? I mean, it's incredible, the creativity, but I'm a person who likes to link everything together and find out the deeper meaning.
So Hannah, what is, you know, where do your stories come from? Why do you decide sometimes, in your new book too, which is amazing, to write from a male point of view?
Well, I've done that 3 times now. The Neighbours, it was a 3 point of view character book, which turned into 4, and one of them needed to be, so there's the husband, the wife, and the daughter, and then the neighbour's wife, and it needed the man's point of view. So it was a need in the story. He needed to tell his story. And then the one that's entirely from a man's point of view, Her Secret Son, it had to be his point of view because his partner dies and leaves behind her 7-year-old boy, and he wants to arrange legal guardianship. So it had to be the story. If I wanted to tell that story, which I did, it had to be from his point of view. It couldn't be from the kids, because writing an entire book for adults from a 7-year-old's point of view would be really tricky. And it would be a completely different story.
Yes.
And the one that's coming out next year that's entirely from a man's point of view, it's just that the story, I generally don't start with a character. I start with a what if, with a situation. And if that situation is best told and explained and lived through the eyes of a man, then I write the man's point of view. And I try not to overthink it, which I did with The Neighbors. I was overthinking it, asking Rob, does this sound like a guide? Let me read this to you. Would you say that? And now I don't really think about that. I find it easier to write a man's point of view than I do necessarily a woman's. And I don't know why that is.
That's so funny. Somebody was saying that, talking about, oh my God, I want to keep this short, but somebody was trying to write from a man's point of view. And one of the early readers, said to her, "This doesn't sound like a man." And she said, "Why?" And the reader said, "Because he keeps apologizing to people." Isn't that hilarious? And she says it's women who apologize. Men just say the thing. And I think about this all the time now. You know, how often I say, "Oh, excuse me," or "Forgive me," or "Would it be okay if I," or "What do you think about X, Y, and Z?" And that, you know, in a male character, when I write male characters, they don't say things like that. So that's this. Kathleen Fox is saying the thriller I'm writing now is dual POV, the second being from the male ex's perspective, and is a sociopath. That does make it harder, but it's fun. I mean, that's what Julie and Hannah are talking about, the imagination part. That's how would a male sociopath see this situation? And that sort of method acting, that character, that's one of the really fun parts.
Yes,
that's fascinating to me when a writer can do that. Maybe that's why I haven't tried to write a book, because it would end up being my life journal, because I can only be me that I know of so far.
But I think the more you write, certainly for me, the more I write on a particular project, the more my imagination is sparked by something I've written. You know, the characters, they don't come fully formed. It's through the process for me of writing not even a first draft, but my first draft, and then layering and layering. And yes, I've done character development before I start typing, and I have my photo gallery, and I've fleshed out their backstory and everything that happened to them, broad strokes, up to the point where the story starts. But then when I'm writing, I think, oh yeah, and when he was 7, blah 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 happened, which is why, and the what happened isn't necessarily in the book, but the consequences of how that impacted him or her, or them, will be in the story. So it's I think that's, as you write, and Hank and I approach plotting differently, but it's when you're writing and developing the story that you develop the characters a bit more as you go along.
Right. It's funny because all the people who are listening right now to us who are writers, you need to know that, as Hannah said, I do it completely differently. I have no character sketches. I have no background. I have no outline. I have no plan. And what works for Hannah works so beautifully for Hannah. And it doesn't work for me at all. My way works for me. And I think that's a real lesson, a real secret for writers who are looking for the way to write a book. And there's only your own way that works. That's the only way it can work for you.
Yeah.
Just like the way we approach life in general, right? We get everything done. If we try to go by a book or go by somebody else's way, it might be so much harder.
Yes.
So true. So much fun to be with both of you today. I have one more question. How do you choose who is going to read which book? Like, do you each like a specific genre, or is it just whatever's on the calendar, that's what you read?
Go on, Hank. You can take, you can take that one.
Well, a long time ago, see, this is how the world works. It's so crazy. Often there's my husband who is coming up from the basement, who is now, the guy is down there fixing the heater because it's so cold in here. It turned out for some weird reason that Hannah was reading on Tuesdays and I was reading on Thursdays. And it was just, as the calendar got fuller, more and more and more crazy full, it was just easier to keep it that way. So it's whatever we get. We don't pick, we don't choose. It is as random as the universe could ever possibly be. If one of us or the other of us has a thing, we switch. So the audience can never quite be sure who's going to be reading on what day, because it depends on things we don't even know what are.
Right.
But what we read is random. It's quite random.
And so you don't read it ahead. Is when you're reading the first chapter, you're reading it cold.
Oh, no. No, we practice.
We're practicing.
Oh, yes. Yes, no, I wouldn't. No, because there's been a couple of times. So I always print both of us, we print the chapter out, and we have a form that we send to the authors with explaining what we need and what we'll do and how it all works. An intake form, if you like. So we have the biography, we have the back cover copy of the book, and then we have the first chapter itself. So I print that out and read it out loud. And underline any words that I don't know how to pronounce, and then I'll Google them. And there was one occasion where I forgot to Google the pronunciation of the words, and I had no idea. And I think nobody said anything. Maybe a few people laughed if I got it wrong. I don't know, but yeah, that was a lesson, because I got to I think it was only one, and I turned the page and I saw the circle of the word, and I thought, oh no.
And there's no way out of it at that point. I will tell you that I do exactly the same thing, print out the page and then read it several times out loud, not to myself, but out loud, because there are phrases that are difficult to say.
Yes.
That you don't know until you actually read them out loud, that they'll be difficult little tongue twisters. So I mark it up and underline and put brackets to where I have a stop and those kinds of things. And sometimes, there'll be words that you think, and like curator. I can never say that right. And I can convince myself that it's either way. And there have been times when I've actually cut phrases out of people's books. Nobody will ever know, because I don't want to say whatever it is. So I just don't say it.
Right.
But there's a lot of practice, as we were saying as we started. There's a lot of practice and a lot of work that goes into making it seem like it's all very casual.
Effortless. Well, incredible. What you are doing is so well loved, as all of these comments are saying. So thank you. Thank you. Uh-oh. I don't know what happened to Hank.
No.
Hank.
Where'd she go?
Oh, no. I don't know. She's not there.
Well, she'll be backstage when she's logged back on, I'm sure. Oh, the trials and tribulations of online stuff.
I don't know what I did. I don't know what happened.
You fell off.
That's what happened. Did you hear a sound? It was like whomp, right? I hit the ground. I don't know. I don't know what happened to you all. That's what happens on these things, right?
Exactly. That's Wi-Fi and social media and all this fun stuff we get to do.
How much have we learned in the past 12 months? Tell you what, a steep learning curve. So much for me, all these different things, and Instagram, and just Instagram everything, and Facebook Lives and Zoom and all that. I mean, so many of us have become so tech savvy now, which we're forced into.
Platform is so wonderful. Hannah, I love it. You are amazing. You are the angel that I needed to understand how to do this.
And it's working perfectly.
So much fun to be with both of you. I look forward to doing this again, and congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. We'll all be tuning in on Wednesday to see all your fabulous giveaways and your 7 p.m. show on Wednesday.
Thank you, Julie, so much.
Thank you.
So much.
So good to be with you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great day.
Love you all.
Bye-bye.